You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. I am, as always, SavageMick.
I am Dave.
I'm Owen.
And I somehow become Warlord Scarr whenever I eat this banana.
Oh, that's one for the 90s kids. And potentially soon, the way the Watts are going, a premium character class only available on D&D Beyond.
No, it's going to be a Magic the Gathering secret lair.
For Banana Man. Go to YouTube now, folks. Do not go to any other site. Do not turn on incognito mode. Check out Banana Man. It's its whole thing. Sits alongside, I think, Super Ted as some of the odder super things from the...
also Super Gran.
Super Gran, yeah. It was so you could slap Super on anything back in the day without an extended universe. And
yeah, no one thought there was going to be a, Beano extended universe. Though they did have a shared universe.
The Dark Dandy universe. Okay.
Well, no, Bash Tree Kids could appear in Dennis the Menace.
That's true, yeah. There were some...
Even though they were very explicitly on the border with Scotland, they could just apparently appear whatever suburbia...
Somewhere in Greater Beano Land.
Like all dangerous working class people, they get them as far away from London as possible.
Okay, so that happened. We did that, but the rest of the episode is about something entirely different. We are here, this is if you've grokked the title, we're here to talk about the opposite of something we talked about previously, which was the notion that the answer is not on your character sheet, that you should be alive to the possibilities in the shared simulation that is your game with the other players and your GM. However, the counterpoint to that is the answer is on your character sheet, that the system provides, that you have constructed a good character, and that there's all sorts of other ways to manipulate your character sheet to bring about success, valor, the respect of your peers, etc., etc. I'll kick to you, Warlord.
Well, I have a silly special. I'm going to be playing Devil's Advocate again because, despite the fact that, OSR is my sworn enemy, hate it, but love it in equal measure, as all good passive warlords should. I do think that there is logic behind all of the various OSR principles, and as we said at the end of the previous episode, the desire is to avoid a situation where someone never engages with the fiction of the universe and simply rolls dice at problems. But with a properly integrated set of mechanics, you can just sort of turn dice rolling into story. I'm thinking of examples like the Sentinels of the Multiverse RPG. That's a very mechanical game. Everything you do that isn't just, a talking scene is meant to be done with dice, whether it be combat or, saving people from, falling buildings or runaway trains. That's all meant to be done using your powers, and you have a list of powers generated from your random or semi-random character creation, and all your what dice you roll and how hard you have to be to use your special superpower. That's all mechanically determined, but the dice encourage people to use a given power in any number of different ways, and they empower the player to say, well, this is the cool trick I'm using with my laser vision. I'm bouncing it off these walls and off this mirror to reprogram this computer. Or, I use my super strength to throw rocks and moon to make a message that my buddies can see to know where I am. Just because something has tight mechanics doesn't mean it can't be used to work with the world or the story or the fiction. It's simply a matter of are you willing to put results and consequences into a dice roll, and be clear, what happens if you roll if you roll a fail, or what your success with the cost criteria are. And in that way, you can turn the character sheet not into just something to ignore the plot, but something to as tools to engage with the plot, as it were.
Okay, yeah. Dave, how do you like...
You're kind of looking at...
Owen, sorry. How do you like to juice a character sheet?
Well, the response there is you're kind of thinking of things in terms of like a dungeon world character sheet, right, Scarr? Where you've got kind of like discern realities and inflict harm and 5 or 6 different actions, and the player kind of looks at one of those and goes, well, which one suits this, and then goes to their thing, and their playbook will make certain ones of those abilities better. So it's kind of like, which I have a sort of a not exactly a love-hate relationship with, but I think they're fine RPGs. I think they have a very high ceiling and very high floor and a relatively low ceiling. I think they do the job pretty well, which is why they're like those on the Apocalypse World family are kind of well regarded, and also they're good ones for a new game designer who isn't quite sure how to make the game do what they want to do. That does what the game is want to do. You can look there and go, oh, I've got, I need to forge a relationship with this person in an X-Men style game. I guess I'll roll, friendly battle or something on my character sheet and get to know them that way, yeah?
That is certainly one of the directions we could go with this. The PBTA and type systems, and then offshoots like Forge of the Dark, which are mechanically rigorous, but through that mechanical rigor, they sort of empower players to, if you use these dice, this is your chances of succeeding, but also this is going to be the likely consequences. And maybe that part is up to the GM, but your odds, regardless of which of the scores in your thing, scores on your sheet you use. I think that's one of the big things about having these sort of rigorous dice rules is that it allows a player to judge the odds, whereas if you're going, abstract rules like OSR thing, you don't know the odds, and therefore you're sort of in a sort of constant negotiation with the GM to find the point where they accept your plan has a 100% chance of success. You don't need to roll at all, but yeah, that's sort of the new paradigm, and we can debate whether or not PBTA or Forge in the Dark is the better sort of implementation of that. But I do think that is a big trend in modern game design, is to have simple but always on mechanics, and those give flexibility for a player to engage with their fictional universe in various ways, while also knowing the math involved.
Okay, I think it's fair to say that the Powered by the Apocalypse and their ilk are mechanically sort of loosey-goosey to some respect. Not that they haven't been worked out, but primarily the interesting thing about them in the context of character sheets and finding the answers there is that they do tend to have a sort of a workbook feel to them. You can look on the character sheet and see what your options are fairly quickly, and something on there is going to do the trick, even if it is something of a negotiation or a fudge to apply it.
And nearly all the information you need to play the game, to resolve your stuff, is actually on the sheet, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's certainly an aspect of those sorts of systems I like. I guess I'd prefer that they were a bit more crunchy, that there could be more, as you say, a higher ceiling for them. Is there anything that comes to mind for that? I always liked Numenera as a character sheet-driven game, especially because you were always using the balance of will I expend my stat to get success now, or do I need to hold on to it to power through later? Not to mention, I'm picking up bags and bags of little trinkets. I'll just use one at random, see what happens, cross it off my character sheet, and keep going. Dave, any character sheets?
Neat dynamic. No, just a thought. Because there's a bit of a divide, or at least a sliding scale of systems that expect you to have system mastery before you ever even look at your character sheet. Like I suppose the belated example would be D&D, third ed, where like system mastery was an explicit design goal, where you like the character creation itself is something of a very important game which you need to get right, and the more right you get it, the character sheet you end up with will have more and better options for you.
That's the thing, isn't it? The reward is that when you've stocked or built a character well, your answers are there on the sheet and they're within easy reach. And I think the important kind of thing I want to drive towards on this particular topic is it's kind of about finding the synergies inside characters, or between your character and another player's character at the table, so that when you go looking for someone who's got great stealth to aid you so that you can sneak up and perform the assassination, that you've got the tools working in concert, and that the answers are on your character sheet. See title. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I was once building a Vampire the Masquerade character with 250 XP, and there was 4 of us sitting down at the table doing it, and we built the character, and we passed around the table, came back, same stats, 20 more XP. Passed around the table again, same stats, 30 more XP. Because that character building minigame was predicated on, for some god-awful reason that every explanation I've heard for why it is the way it is it sounds dumber and dumber every time I hear it, is that the experience at character creation is different to how the experience is spent at character progression. So you can make deliberately lopsided choices during character building and save XP then with progression. So, like, if I want to buy Dex 5, that costs me, 5 character builder points. But it would cost me 25 XP. So it's... whereas if I wanted to buy Dex 2, that would cost 2 character build points, but that would only cost 4 XP.
You're discounted to begin with, and then it's going to be much more expensive later on.
Exactly. So you basically cheese the whole thing round, and then you're like, oh, the 5th stat costs double in character points, but if you get a 5th bonus stat from something, that doesn't count for that. So I'll just go, okay, so I'll raise my strength to 4, and then my clan benefit will be +1 strength, and now I'm strength 5 for whatever XP. So that's my example of a bad minigame.
Right.
It's very attractive if you're good at it, but
you can cheese out pretty early.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's like you shouldn't be able to do stuff like that.
Any good examples? Anything you've seen that you thought did it well to get that character sheet up and running?
There are games which are very quick, and that's always attractive. I think the most interesting character sheets are the ones where the core mechanic of the game is relatively simple, and the complexity then comes in from your choices on character building. Like, if you can get your kind of core rules down to a relatively simple thing to explain, and then all of the complexity comes from your special abilities, kind of exception-based design,
right?
I think the game learns pretty well. On the other hand, if you've got a massive front end of learning, you can actually have a situation where you're like, oh dear God, this is so complicated to learn this game, let's just go back and play D&D 5th Ed, which is bad. One of the best examples for a good to learn to play RPG, which I've mentioned before, that actually had a lot of complexity to it, was Wolfrup 3rd Edition.
Yeah.
Because Wolfrup 3rd Edition went, here are your basic 4 action cards. Here's your character sheet. Fill in your character sheet. Take your career card. Down your career card, your career card has 2 slots for talents. And you're like, what does that mean? It's like, well, you can have 2 active talents in this character sheet. Like, I don't have any talents yet. Yeah, but buy one. And they buy one for XP, and this talent is like, you have, +2 soak while engaged in melee. And you're like, oh, okay, so I just slot that on, and that's what my character sheet does. Oh, sweet. And how do my cards work? Oh, I just tells me to pick up my agility dice and my weapon skill dice. That's on my character sheet, so 3 green, and 2 yellow, and then I roll that, and then I read the symbols off the card, and I get my answer. It's great. It's really it's a really fabulous way to teach an RPG. It's actually very straightforward.
And allows for plenty of complexity later on in terms of combinations of classes, etc.
And then what happens is the player doesn't have to ask the GM what can they do.
Yeah.
Or doesn't have to go, how do I make this attack? Or how do I resolve this attack? They can just read the card in front of them. And that's very empowering for a new player because they can kind of read, when it's not their turn, they can read the card. You know, okay, that's how it works. Grand.
They can figure out their options.
Yeah. And I've got 4 cards. Cool. Which is a bit like the playbooks with a bit more complexity to them and a bit more granularity to it, and that's all good. And then when you get hurt, you lose wounds, and when you get crit, here's a crit card. Oh, these suck. Where do they go? One of your talent slots. You're like, oh, okay, so I lose some of my abilities. So it immediately kind of explains the game to the player, and it lets the player read the rules between the round without having to pull open a book. And that's to be commended, because again, you're letting the player figure out how to play the game themselves, so they'll develop a bit more system mastery, and they'll start to appreciate, that's what this means. Oh, okay, that's cool. And just good stuff. Just good stuff, because it can be very hard sometimes for a new player to kind of just be like, oh, what do I do? What do I do, GM? Whereas with this one, you're not going, what do I do, GM? You're going, okay, I can play one of these cards. I'll play this card.
I do like that aspect of the sort of character management that you're, okay, if I've taken a critical wound, I've got to now weigh up which talent can I do without for this, depending on what's going on. And it's there on the sheet, or it's there as an overlay on the sheet with your cards, things like that. As you say, it keeps it all really clear and under the player's control.
Yeah, and it also plays into the favourite thing they had in Warfare 3rd Edition that nobody else has done, which is they also had the party character sheet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, love that.
And on the party character sheet, there were talent slots. So one of the things you could do was you could go, I'm going to take my slot, my basically well-ard slot, and instead of having it on my character sheet, I'm going to put it on the party's character sheet. Now everybody has it.
Nice.
So everyone's following my example, and they're getting this bonus from it. The Dwarven Engineer class had a modifier one where the character card actually had slots to put tokens in, and they could modify their gear to be like, okay, these are my assault pistons. These improve my ability to swing a weapon, and I'm going to put different bonuses on it, so the -1 difficulty, and then plus a yellow dice and plus a blue dice. And then you could take that and put it on the party sheet, and then everyone in the party sheet got the same bonus. So you'd equipped all of your friends with pistons to make their things swing harder. A bunch of other really good ideas. There was a special ability on the sheet. There was a fortune pool, which is where your rerolls were, and there was a tension meter that whenever stuff went wrong, the tension meter went up, and bad stuff happened at certain tension points. So that was kind of to represent the party kind of fighting with themselves.
Right, get a bit.
But then the OSR aficionado may counterpoint by say, but you can't. That requires all the fancy fight games as best cardboard and fancy dice, whereas my OSR game requires only an index card to put your meaningless stats on.
Look, I know some OSR people are literally playing the game hanging out of a tree, with just one hand to hold their card, but you can just write all this stuff out if you have a well enough designed card sheet. Also, you can just print this stuff out if you're doing a PDF. The components was an attempt to damage RPG piracy, which I get, and also RPG people are terrible goblins. They'll buy shiny things because they're shiny. Look at all the dice.
Oh, yeah.
Look at all the dice D&D is selling. Spell cards. Please, we can't keep these in stock.
Yeah.
Some people need to have, I want to play this with just an A4 pad and half a pencil. No wood here, just the lead. But other people are going to spend a bit of money if that's the game they're playing.
Well, like even with minimalist games, like if a game gets trendy in the indie or OSR sphere, it can end up selling quite a bit, and people will end up buying quite a lot of accessories or stuff in relation to it.
How many of those classic OSR modules are coffee table books, basically unplayable? And
who knows? The episode isn't another chance for you to wield the axe against the OSR. So, good character sheet design leads to good play, I think. And as Owen was pointing out, making it easier for the player to parse what their character is good and bad at is essential. The other thing I really like about characters is one of the places we employ characters is to keep track of our stuff. There's the stuff we bolt on directly to the character in terms of weapons, armor, gadgets, etc. What I really, really like, and anyone who's played with me in almost any game will know, is I love a well-stocked backpack full of just oddments. Things that just might be useful. A bit like that in real life as well. So the lantern oil and the 10 foot of rope and the RFID scanner, that kind of stuff, all goes into the backpack, and to be pulled out in those moments where you're not really sure what you should do. So let's see if we can do something with this net. Any thoughts on equipment on character sheets and tracking it, when it's good and when it's bad?
Honestly, I'm straying away from the idea of minimalist character sheets for the simple reason that anything you can do to speed things up in game and to reduce cognitive load when people are trying to work out options is a good thing, or at least has advantages. And having a well laid out character sheet with clear options or material you can create options from easily sounds pretty appealing, as opposed to an index card size thing, which, yes, might technically have all the information you need, but requires more, processing, to use the phrase.
Yeah, and the main issue, of course, is, some people, will put, these fancy buttons I got off someone's coat and these shiny rocks that were always left that great statue we've disintegrated, and put it equally on their character sheet next to their sword and their magical bag full of trained bears and all those things. And that's where organization of your character sheet, some character sheets will help you organize them themselves. Others will just have everything in front of you and not really be tools for
running the
making
character.
things clearer.
Yeah, they are bad and they should go away. The longer I play this, the easier I want it to be to run a character.
This is one place where VTTs are great, because you can just click on the item and go, what the hell does this grasshopper orb do? Yes, I can use this to basically stride twice for one action, and I ignore difficult terrain.
You're right.
Oh, okay.
You're right. Yeah.
That'll use now. And cards are good as an alternative to that. Other than that, you just a great section of card sheet is a page number to put down, a section for a page number to put down the page in the core book that you find said device, so you can actually look it up quickly.
Yes, always something I did in any of the D&Ds I played, especially once feats and things were added, and you're like, well, what does this do? If I can't compress what it does into a line, page number. But as you said, the VTTs, the ability to sort of show everyone else what the item on your character sheet will do, and peruse it while the rest of the party are doing the thing. Not to mention, in games with sort of free or bonus actions as part of the system, having those offhand items to deploy. I'd throw the shiny buttons at his feet to distract him, or I drape the net across the doorway with my free action to stop the bats from flying in. That sort of stuff is, I think, it's great to have the equipment to hand. The other place we use character sheets sometimes is to keep track of relationships. Well, some games do and some games don't, but it can be handy. Add an extra sheet if you need to, folks. Just to have a relationship map. You enter a new town and all of a sudden, well, okay, who's the bursar? Who's in charge of defense? That kind of stuff. Map it all out on your character sheet and it'll make it much easier, much less time consuming for your poor GM who has run out of funny voices with which to delineate all of these nameless oiks.
And another thing about character sheets, whether a designer creates space, like allocated space for it or not, players are going to write notes on those sheets. They're going to doodle on them. They're going to write stuff about relationships or loot or something. So you're better off just creating a structure for that if you think that's important.
Definitely, the GM should be handing out all those index cards and spare sheet of printer paper should always be available to the players to expand their character sheet whenever they want. But that does also bring up the spectre of, at a certain point, a sheet becomes more than a leaf or two of paper. Now you've got cards, you've got little handout pictures of the main NPCs. You've got references.
A dossier starts to be built, which I think I've played in some games where there was kind of a player pooled dossier that would stay with the GM during the week, but when it came to game time, hand it out, and the players would distribute the important bits and pieces amongst themselves to jog memories or to get them back up to speed on an investigation. What links had been made or inferred. Right.
Yeah.
What else can we say about
actually, that's a point I just wanted to, this is maybe getting a bit meta, but do people find that their players are okay with GMs keeping the character sheets between sessions, or do people prefer to have their character sheet at next to their bosom in their shirt pocket at all times in case to deflect bullets in case of mafia attacks or something?
Played it both ways. Go on, Dave.
Yeah, I've played it both ways as well. Most of my players keep their own character sheets between sessions. I think I did experiment with hang on to character sheets at one point. Didn't really make much of a difference one way or the other. People seem to be happier, but at least the players I've played with, if they have their own character sheets with them. So I generally just default to that.
It's just that at a certain point, either you need to have central control over a character sheet, or you need to just buy some of those cheap cardboard folders that you used to have at school, and just hand those out to the players to say, all right, here's a folder, keep all your item cards and your NPC profiles and your backstory sheet or whatever you have as well.
It holds some interesting potential if a GM gathers up character sheets between sessions, especially if, and this has to be, there's a high trust sort of barrier here, but if you have things that are happening in the game, if you're a very narrative-led GM, and you want certain things to be reflected on people's character sheets, then you as the GM could edit them. Probably easier with digital formats and then reprint them and hand them out. But this idea that your character could sort of perhaps evolve in some way. Maybe you've got a mysterious disease, the symptoms of which are unknown, and you're trying to figure it out from week to week before it kills you. A race against time kind of scenario. Or you're undergoing some strange divine transformation. Those nubs in your shoulders, are they about to become wings or some sort of terrifying spider legs? It's like GMs, in theory, have a lot of control over this stuff, but generally characters, because players have constructed them, and especially if it's a mechanically rigorous game, they're not going to appreciate those surprises. But there's potential there, I think, for a GM to sort of use the character sheet to present some surprises and opportunities. You wake up and you find these blood red rubies in your pocket the next day. You've no idea how they got there. I wonder what that means.
Or maybe it's just been shuffled into your pile of item cards, and one time you're going through looking for your potions of water breathing, and you find this mysterious letter from the king that has been there for months and you never opened.
I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah, and less intrusive as well, if it's sort of a common pool of cards or something of that ilk.
Yeah.
The dossier, you open the dossier to find a mysterious blood-soaked letter. It's like, what the hell? Where did this come from?
Yeah. It is a topic we've covered in previous episodes, but you have a lot more options if your players trust you to do these kinds of things. But the character sheet, if it's available to you, is one of the tools that you can use.
Yeah, you don't need to entirely blindside them. You can tell the players that you're doing something to their character, and it's up to the player to kind of incorporate that into how the character plays out. I had a character who, after a time jump, we discovered he lost a leg, replaced by a mechanical leg. No explanation, but
these things happen,
and you just have to kind of roll into it. It was all good fun. I think I got to jump extra high on my mechanical leg, something like that. It was so bonus, but obviously some people feel differently about the loss of limbs. A subject for another time. Anything else you want to say about character sheets before we wrap up?
I think the main point for having this sort of mechanical rigor in a character sheet is to give players not only their options to be more explicit, but also the odds of those options to be more explicit. And to give people, say, you have your Power by the Apocalypse, you can tell, with relative ease what your chance with your 2d6 plus 2 to get a 7 plus or 10 plus on a roll is. That's the power of the explicit character sheet, is it makes it very clear what your odds are. But some GMs, presumably, including not all, but some of the OSR people, they would rather define that in the moment. They would rather say, for dramatic purposes, this thing should be harder, or I'm looking for them to elaborate on their plan. I don't want it to just be a craft check. So some people would prefer some GMs would prefer the flexibility of it being ruled at the time, and say that we make everything on the character sheet that limits people. Do people think that, this sort of, they sometimes call it tactical infinity, because it means that, there's you have infinite options, you have infinite things, just explain it well, give me your logic, and I'll say whether it has a certain chance of succeeding, and then let you roll.
I would argue that in theory you've infinite options in other games anyway, regardless of whether you're using that paradigm or not. I think I get what you're getting at there, but that does also require a fair bit of processing on the GM's part at the time. So maybe the GM might realize, might be better off if the players have a bit more structure to their options from, say, a character sheet or cards. Just throwing that out there.
I think go ahead.
I don't like playing Mother May I with the GM. Fundamentally, one reason it's bad is that it's not empowering. You feel like you're only allowed to do stuff if the GM decides. That makes sense. Number two, it means I can't plan my turn until my turn starts, because I don't know if my GM will let me do that thing. I'll have to ask, Mother, may I please cast this spell to do this rather than that? No, give me robust rules and I can plan my turn. I feel like I'm in charge here. I feel like I'm making choices. It's not on me going, can I convince you, GM? Is there an argument that you like? Not that I like, that you like. Oh, no, sod that.
That's a fair point.
It's written on my character sheet, says I can do it. I don't care if the blood winds are blowing extra hard today. I'm taking my role. Yeah. The other thing I'd say about character sheets is, if you're using your bog standard back of the book, photocopy this page, permission granted character sheet, you're doing it wrong. Go find the custom one for your class or your particular whatever you're using in your game. I'm a sucker for prestige specific character sheets. And if there isn't one, take the one that you have, fill out your character on it, and cut it up into its respective sections and reorganize it so it makes sense for you. In the course, this probably happened after you've played a few sessions and seen how the mechanics work, and notice that you're always kind of flipping to the second page to find your resistance bonuses or whatever. Reorganize your character sheet, scan it, copy it out, get it into a desktop editor or whatever. Reorganize your character sheet so it suits your play and it has the sections that you need. It's great fun. It says the layout guy. It is great fun, and it means that you've got more control over your character. You've customized it. It's a custom hog now. Give it a go.
What I would say about that is play with the pre-published one for 2 or 3 sessions.
Yeah.
You'll very quickly figure out what isn't on the first page that you want on the first page.
Exactly that.
But you need that experience of going, okay, what do I want on the first page of this sheet?
Not to mention,
and then you have to go online and see if there's a helpful character sheet pervert who's already built you one that looks like that.
And there are a few.
Or can you do it yourself?
Yeah.
Well, somebody made those character sheets initially. Why not you?
Yeah.
Just think about what that flex is going to be like when you rock up to the table. Everyone gets their sort of A4 character sheet out, and you produce a 2-foot-long scroll that flops down over your knees. it's like, yeah, this is how I rock this character, baby.
Nice.
And if you are the type of player who, and I've often been accusing OSR GMs or very high fluke gems as being the issue here, but there are a lot of players who also like, I don't like all these pre-made options. A true artist will discover my own options by badgering the GM with my crazy ideas. If that's your style of play, you can use this character sheet not as a straitjacket, but as sort of what's it, the spark table. Like you can add on to it, like, these are the things I want to use. These buttons I found, this brain juice, my underwhelming charisma, which is +1 against most people, but +3 against elves. If you have ideas of all the various ideas, you can reorganize your table to be inspiring rather than straitjacket that forces you to roll dice to solve problems.
Excellent, yeah. Listen, folks,
like Rolly does.
We are the Adventure Party. We've had some fun talking about why the answer is on your character sheet and all the various ways you can flex that. Tell you what, if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a picture of your favorite character sheet, or the character sheet you're using right now, or the one you've saved from a beloved now ended campaign, and post a picture on our Discord. You thought I'd forget about our Discord. You'll find a link in the show notes or wherever you're listening to this in the description for this episode. But yeah, send us. And I'm tell you what, I'll start the ball rolling. I'm going to post some pictures of my custom Star Wars Cortex system character sheet I created that folds down from an A4 page into a dinky little wallet-sized thing that you can carry between sessions.
Nice.
They wore out really quickly though, so I kept having to refill them. And the bonus on this was, I had a load of cheat sheets on the back of it. It's like you're just unfurling. Oh, right, okay. That's what critical wounds look like. Deadly. Anyways, look to our Discord if you want to join in this conversation. We'd be delighted to meet you there. I've been SavageMick.
I've been Dave.
I've been on.
And the banana's wearing off, but I am still Warlord Scarr.
And this party is over. Thank you for listening to the Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.